They called it the most lavish Indian wedding of the year, until hotel staff found a bride beaten and lifeless on the marble floor of Mumbai's most exclusive hotel. Standing over her body was the groom, still in his blood-stained sherwani, calmly telling police she had ruined his honor and destroyed his family's name. If you're fascinated by stories of deadly betrayal and hidden secrets, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we uncover the darkest truths behind perfect facades every week. But let's go back to where it all began. The morning of January 15th, 2024, Mumbai awakened under a golden winter sun that painted the Arabian Sea in shades of amber and rose. In the penthouse suite of the Trident Hotel, overlooking the gateway of India, 23-year-old Kavya Sharma stood before an ornate mirror. Her reflection multiplied endlessly in the intricate beadwork of her wedding lehenga. The deep crimson silk, embroidered with gold threads that had taken master craftsmen in Rajasthan 6 months to complete, weighed nearly 20 pounds. Each delicate stitch told a story of tradition, of family sacrifice, of dreams that had traveled from a modest middle-class home in Pune to this moment of seeming triumph. Kavya's mother, Sunita Sharma, knelt beside her daughter with trembling hands, adjusting the heavy dupatta that would frame her face during the sacred ceremony. Her weathered fingers, marked by decades of working double shifts as a school teacher to afford this day, struggled with the delicate pins that would hold the ancestral veil in place. "My precious Beta," she whispered, her voice thick with tears of joy and exhaustion. "Today you become not just a bride, but the salvation of our family. Every rupee we borrowed, every sacrifice we made, it has all led to this blessed moment." The cramped apartment where Kavya had grown up studying by candlelight during power cuts seemed like another lifetime now, replaced by marble floors and crystal chandeliers that reflected a future beyond her wildest childhood dreams. The suite buzzed with controlled chaos as female relatives moved in choreographed precision, each woman playing her designated role in transforming the software engineer into the perfect Indian bride. Kavya's Aunt Mira, who had mortgaged her own jewelry to contribute to the wedding expenses, supervised the makeup artist specially flown in from Delhi, ensuring every kohl line was perfect. Every gold highlight caught the light just so. The Mehndi artist, whose intricate henna designs had adorned the hands of Bollywood stars, made final adjustments to patterns that covered Kavya's arms like delicate lacework, each swirl and curve telling ancient stories of love and prosperity that felt more like beautiful lies with every passing moment. But beneath the elaborate preparations, beneath the laughter and tears of relatives who had traveled from across India for this celebration, Kavya carried a weight that had nothing to do with her ornate clothing. Her smartphone, hidden beneath layers of silk and tradition, vibrated constantly with messages from a life she had carefully constructed in shadows. The independence she had carved out during her 3 years working in Mumbai's tech industry. The modern woman she had become in air-conditioned offices and trendy cafes. The secrets that had grown like poisonous flowers in the garden of her family's trust. All of it pressed against her chest like a physical thing, making it difficult to breathe beneath the tight bodice of her ancestral lehenga. "Beta, you look pale," observed her cousin Priya, one of the few family members who had noticed the strain behind Kavya's practiced smile. "Are you feeling well? Wedding day nerves are completely normal, but you look as if you might faint at any moment." The concern in her voice was genuine, born from years of watching Kavya excel at everything she touched, from academic achievements to professional success, making her the family's greatest source of pride and their most precious investment. Kavya forced her perfected smile, the same expression she had rehearsed for months of video calls with her future in-laws, the same mask she wore during every conversation about her carefully curated version of life in Mumbai. "I'm just overwhelmed, Didi. It's such an important day, and I want everything to be absolutely perfect for both families." Perfect. The word had become her mantra, her prayer, her curse. The perfect daughter who had succeeded in the corporate world while maintaining traditional values. The perfect bride who would bring honor to both families through this strategic union. The perfect wife who would seamlessly blend modernity with ancient customs, without anyone discovering the carefully hidden cracks in her flawless facade. Across the sprawling city, in an equally luxurious suite at the Grand Hyatt, 28-year-old Rohan Malhotra adjusted his cream-colored sherwani for the 4th time in 15 minutes, while staring at his reflection with growing unease. The silk garment, custom tailored by the same Mumbai designer who had created Kavya's lehenga, fit his athletic frame perfectly, but nothing felt right this morning. His usually steady hands, accustomed to closing million-rupee business deals with confidence, trembled as he attempted to fasten the ornate buttons that ran down the front of the long coat. The mirror showed a successful man in his prime, handsome, wealthy, educated, exactly the kind of groom any family would be thrilled to welcome. But Rohan knew that mirrors could lie just as convincingly as people could. Rohan's younger brother Arjun burst into the suite with characteristic energy, adjusting his own formal attire as hotel staff bustled around them preparing for the bearer procession. "Bye. Stop staring at yourself like you're going to a funeral," he laughed, completely oblivious to his brother's internal turmoil. "Today you're marrying the most eligible girl in Mumbai. Mom hasn't stopped talking about how perfect Kavya is since we met her family last month." Perfect. There was that word again, following him like a shadow. Arjun had always been the golden child, effortlessly charming everyone he met, destined for success without the crushing weight of family expectations that had shaped Rohan's entire existence. "Have you heard anything unusual about her?" Rohan asked quietly, his voice barely audible above the sounds of preparation in the adjoining room where their father and uncles were getting dressed. "Anything that might concern our family's reputation?" His brother paused in adjusting Rohan's turban, meeting his eyes in the ornate mirror with sudden seriousness. "What kind of unusual?" Her background check was flawless. Software engineer, sends money home to her family, no previous relationships. What more could you want in a wife? But that wasn't what Rohan was asking, and they both understood the subtext. In Mumbai's tight-knit business community, where the Malhotra family had built their textile empire over 3 generations, information traveled faster than monsoon rains. Reputations were constructed and demolished over casual conversations at the Mumbai Club and Gujarati community gatherings. Recently, Rohan had begun noticing uncomfortable silences when Kavya's name appeared in conversation, subtle glances exchanged between certain community elders that spoke of knowledge they weren't sharing. "I've heard she's been seen around the city," Rohan said carefully, testing the waters without revealing his specific fears, at places that might not be appropriate for someone from a traditional family like ours. Arjun's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a slight tightening around his eyes that confirmed Rohan's growing suspicions weren't entirely unfounded. "You know how people gossip in our community by someone sees an Indian girl at a restaurant or shopping mall, and suddenly she's living a completely Western lifestyle. It doesn't mean anything sinister. She's young, educated, working independently in Mumbai's corporate world. Of course, she's adapted a life here. Isn't that exactly what we want? Someone who can function successfully in both traditional and modern environments." But even as he spoke these reassuring words, Arjun's tone lacked its usual conviction. He had heard the same whispered conversations, noticed the same knowing looks from community aunties who thrived on scandal and speculation. More troubling, he had seen some of the social media photographs that circulated through Mumbai's interconnected social networks. Images showing a young woman bearing striking resemblance to their future sister-in-law, living a lifestyle that would shock their conservative parents and send ripples of scandal through their carefully maintained social standing. The Sacred Heart Cathedral's ancient bells chimed 11 times as the Bharat procession wound through Mumbai's congested streets. Rohan sat atop a white stallion decorated with marigold garlands and silk ribbons, his cream sherwani catching the harsh January sunlight as hundreds of wedding guests danced to thunderous dal drums that echoed off surrounding buildings. To casual observers, this was pure celebration, a successful Mumbai business family honoring their son's marriage with traditional pageantry that spoke of prosperity and cultural pride. But beneath the elaborate festivities, tensions simmered like pressure building in a covered pot. Inside the Trident Hotel's grand ballroom, 600 guests awaited the ceremony in a space that had been transformed into something resembling a Rajasthani palace. Thousands of white roses and marigolds created an elaborate canopy above the mandip, where sacred fire would burn, while crystal chandeliers cast warm golden light over tables set with finest china and silk linens that cost more than most Mumbai families earned in a year. The air was thick with incense and anticipation as 3 generations of both families gathered to witness what everyone believed would be the perfect union of compatible values and complementary ambitions. Kavya's entrance silenced the massive crowd completely. Carried on a decorated platform by 8 male cousins, she seemed to float above the sea of guests like a vision from ancient Sanskrit epics. Her red lehenga caught the light and threw back thousands of tiny sparkles, while generations-old family jewelry proclaimed her worthiness to join the Malhotra dynasty. The dupatta covering her face created an air of mystery that satisfied the most traditional relatives, while her confident posture spoke to modern success and independence that impressed the younger generation. In the third row of guests sat 24-year-old Priya Desai, watching the proceedings with growing unease that she couldn't quite articulate. Her sister had been Kavya's roommate during her first year in Mumbai, before Kavya had mysteriously moved to an expensive Bandra apartment that no software engineer's salary should realistically afford. As the pundit began chanting Sanskrit verses that had echoed through thousands of years of Indian weddings, Priya's phone buzzed with a message from her sister in Bangalore. Is that really the same Kavya who used to come home at 3 in the morning smelling like expensive perfume and alcohol, telling us her parents thought she was asleep by 10 every night? The sacred fire crackled as Kavya and Rohan began the 7 circles that would bind them as husband and wife, each revolution representing ancient vows for nourishment, strength, prosperity, happiness, progeny, longevity, and friendship. The assembled guests chanted along in Sanskrit, their voices creating a chorus that had echoed through thousands of years of Indian tradition. But during the 4th circle, Kavya stumbled slightly, her elaborate lehenga catching on the marble steps of the mandip. Rohan steadied her with his hand, a gesture captured by photographers as a beautiful symbol of support. But those close enough noticed her complexion had gone pale beneath layers of carefully applied makeup, her hands trembling as she held the ritual coconut. "She looks nervous," whispered one of Rohan's aunts to her sister, both women watching with the practiced eye of matriarchs who had overseen dozens of family weddings. Natural for any girl, especially one who has been living independently in Mumbai's corporate world. Her sister nodded, but added with pointed emphasis, "Independent. Yes, that's certainly one way to describe it. I've heard interesting stories about her independence from some of the Bandra ladies." The comment hung in the perfumed air like incense smoke, carrying implications that neither woman wanted a voice directly, but both clearly understood. As the ceremony reached its climax with a Mangal Sutra being tied around Kavya's neck, the crowd erupted in applause, and rose petals fell like crimson snow. But as the sacred gold necklace settled against her throat, the ancient symbol meant to represent protection and devotion, Kavya felt something beyond tradition or joy. The weight of the Mangal Sutra felt like chains locking her into a life built entirely on deception. Each link forged from lies she had told and secrets she had buried beneath designer clothes and expensive dinners that her software engineer salary could never afford. The reception that followed showcased the full extent of Indo-Mumbaiker prosperity. A 12-piece orchestra played classical Indian music, while 600 guests feasted on delicacies prepared by chefs from Mumbai's most exclusive hotels. During the traditional speeches, both fathers spoke about uniting 2 families, 2 sets of values, 2 commitments to preserving Indian culture while embracing Mumbai's boundless opportunities. "Today we celebrate not just a wedding," Rohan's father Rajesh declared, his voice cracking with emotion, "but the continuation of our most cherished traditions." Kavya and Rohan represent the best of both worlds, successful in their careers, yet deeply rooted in our culture. As the evening progressed, and older relatives began departing for their homes across the sprawling city, the celebration evolved into something more contemporary. Traditional Chennai music gave way to Bollywood hits that had the younger generation dancing with abandon. Kavya changed from her heavy ceremonial lehenga into lighter reception wear, though she maintained all the traditional jewelry that marked her new status as a married woman. It was during this more relaxed phase of the celebration that the first Rayal crack appeared in the carefully constructed facade both families had spent months perfecting. Rohan was socializing with business colleagues near the hotel bar when one of them, emboldened by whiskey and the festive atmosphere, made a comment that stopped conversation cold. "Beautiful wedding, Rohan." Your wife is absolutely stunning, though she looks quite different from some photographs I've seen of her around Mumbai. Much more traditional tonight than usual. The observation hung in the air like monsoon humidity, heavy with implications that everyone present understood, but no one wanted to address directly. Rohan's practiced smile never wavered, but his grip tightened on his crystal tumbler until his knuckles went white. Around Mumbai? Different than usual, he replied carefully, his voice steady despite the adrenaline suddenly surging through his system. I'm not sure what you're referring to. His colleague, perhaps realizing he had ventured into dangerous territory, quickly backtracked with the awkwardness of someone trying to undo damage already done. Oh, nothing serious, Yar. Wedding photographs always make everyone look so formal and traditional. It's nice to see how well she's adapted to Mumbai's lifestyle. But the damage was irreversible. As the evening wound toward its close and guests offered final congratulations before departing into Mumbai's neon-lit night, Rohan found himself studying his new wife with eyes that no longer saw the perfect bride he had married, but a woman who might be hiding far more than anyone had imagined. The whispered conversations, the knowing glances, the uncomfortable silences when her name was mentioned, all of it began forming a pattern that pointed towards secrets buried beneath her flawless exterior. At 11:30 that night, Kavya and Rohan climbed into a flower-decorated limousine that would take them to their honeymoon suite at the exclusive Grand Hyatt overlooking the Queen's Necklace. Rose petals from the ceremony still clung to Kavya's hair as exhaustion and what she mistook for relief washed over her delicate features. "What a day," she said softly, watching Mumbai's glittering skyline blur past the tinted windows. "I can't believe it's finally over." "Over?" Rohan repeated, something in his tone making her turn to look at him directly. "I thought it was just beginning." In the limousine's dim interior, surrounded by the fragrant remnants of their elaborate wedding ceremony, neither spoke about the questions hanging between them like gathering monsoon clouds. Both understood instinctively that the ceremony had been merely prologue to a conversation that would determine whether their marriage would survive its first night. The luxury vehicle glided through Mumbai's neon-lit streets, past late-night food stalls and couples taking romantic walks along Marine Drive, while inside an entirely different kind of drama was preparing to unfold. The Grand Hyatt's presidential suite had been transformed into a honeymoon sanctuary that rivaled anything from Bollywood's most romantic films. Rose petals scattered across Egyptian cotton sheets, champagne chilling in crystal buckets, and dozens of candles flickering on every surface, while floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Mumbai's glittering skyline stretching toward the Arabian Sea. The marble bathroom featured a soaking tub filled with warm water and floating lotus blossoms, while the sitting area had been arranged with silk cushions and silver trays of traditional sweets that neither of them would touch. But the romantic atmosphere couldn't mask the tension that followed them through the mahogany door like an unwelcome wedding guest. Kavya kicked off her heavy, traditional shoes with visible relief and moved toward the ornate vanity mirror, beginning the tedious process of removing the elaborate jewelry and hair ornaments that had made her head ache throughout the long celebration. Her reflection showed exhaustion beneath carefully applied makeup, dark circles that cosmetics couldn't quite conceal after months of planning this deception and stress that had kept her awake most nights. "Finally," she sighed, reaching for the pins holding her dupatta in place. "I thought this day would never end. Every muscle in my body is aching from carrying all that jewelry and pretending to smile for 600 people." Rohan closed the door behind them with deliberate care, engaging the security lock with a soft click that seemed unnaturally loud in the quiet suite. He loosened his turban, setting it carefully on the dresser before turning to face his new wife with an expression she had never seen before, cold, calculating, and completely devoid of the warmth he had shown during their courtship. "Before you get too comfortable," he said quietly, his voice carrying an undercurrent that made her stomach clench with sudden fear, "we need to discuss something important." Something in his tone made Kavya pause mid-motion, her hands freezing on a heavy gold necklace as she watched him in the mirror. He pulled out his smartphone and scrolled through what appeared to be saved messages and photographs, his face illuminated by the screen's harsh glow. "Discuss what?" she asked, forcing lightness into her voice despite the growing dread in her chest. "It's our wedding night, Rohan. Can't whatever business matter this is wait until morning?" It's about your life in Mumbai, he replied, his voice steady but carrying steel that made her turn from the mirror to face him directly. The real one, not the carefully edited version you've been showing our families for the past year. The blood drained from Kavya's face as she stared at him, her mind racing through possibilities of what he might have discovered and how extensive his knowledge might be. For a moment, she considered maintaining the charade that had gotten her this far, but the expression in his eyes told her he possessed concrete evidence that would make denials impossible. "What exactly do you think you know?" she asked carefully, her voice barely above a whisper. Rohan held up his phone, showing her a series of social media screenshots that made her heart stop completely. Images of a woman who looked exactly like her, but dressed in designer clothes no traditional Indian daughter would wear, in places no modest girl would frequent, with people who clearly lived very different lives than the one she had described to both families during months of careful courtship. Club Trill in Bandra, Shisha Lounge in Juhu, that expensive restaurant in Worli where dinner costs more than most Mumbai families spend on groceries in a month, he said, scrolling through the damning evidence methodically. These photographs were taken over the past 8 months, Kavya. While you were video calling our parents wearing simple salwar suits and talking about saving money to send home, you were actually living like a Bollywood actress with unlimited resources. Her carefully constructed world began crumbling as she stared at evidence she hadn't known existed. Photographs taken by strangers, social media posts from acquaintances who had tagged her without permission, check-ins at locations that contradicted every story she had told about her modest lifestyle. "You hired a private investigator to spy on me," she whispered, sinking into the plush chair near the window. "I didn't have to," Rohan replied, setting the phone on the marble coffee table between them like evidence in a courtroom. "Mumbai's business community is smaller than you realize, especially among successful families like ours. People talk, Kavya. They've been talking for months about the software engineer living beyond her means, the traditional girl who wasn't quite as traditional as she claimed to be." The weight of her elaborate lehenga suddenly felt unbearable, the red silk that had made her feel like a queen during the ceremony now seeming like a costume in a play that had gone terribly, dangerously wrong. "I can explain everything," Kavya began desperately, but Rohan cut her off with a bitter laugh that echoed off the marble walls. "Explain what?" "How you've been living in a luxury Bandra penthouse while telling your parents you were sharing a modest flat in Andheri. How you've accumulated over 10 lakh rupees in credit card debt buying designer clothes and expensive dinners while claiming to send money home to support your family." He scrolled to another damning photograph. "Or maybe you can explain this." The image that appeared on his screen made Kavya's heart stop completely. It was from just 3 weeks ago, taken at the exclusive Soho house in Juhu. In the photograph, she was laughing intimately with a man whose arm was wrapped possessively around her shoulders, a tall, handsome investment banker named Arjun Kapadia, who had been her secret boyfriend for over a year. The timestamp showed it was taken the same evening she had called Rohan to discuss final wedding preparations, claiming to be at home with a headache. "Who is he, Kavya?" The question hung in the perfumed air like a blade waiting to fall. She stared at the evidence of her double life, at months of careful deception unraveling in seconds. He's just a colleague from work," she stammered, but the lies sounded hollow, even to her own ears. "Colleagues don't spend weekends together in Goa," Rohan said, producing more photographs. "They don't have keys to each other's apartments. They don't plan futures together while one of them is getting married to someone else." The investigation into her life had been more thorough than she had ever imagined possible. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, flight bookings to romantic getaways, all of it documented with the precision of a criminal case. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under," Kavya said, tears beginning to flow down her cheeks, ruining her expensive makeup. "My parents expected perfection from me. I couldn't disappoint them by admitting I was struggling financially, that I wasn't the traditional daughter they believed me to be. So you decided to destroy my life instead." Rohan's voice was rising now, the controlled facade finally cracking. "You were going to take my family's money, ruin our reputation in Mumbai's business community, and continue your relationship with your boyfriend behind my back." The words hit like physical blows because they were essentially true. Kavya had convinced herself that the arranged marriage was a sophisticated solution, financial security and family approval, while maintaining her real relationship with Arjun, who had promised to wait until she could divorce Rohan after a respectable period and claim her share of the Malhotra family wealth. I hope maybe we could find a way to make this work, she said desperately. Maybe over time we could genuinely care for each other. But the expression on Rohan's face told her how naive that sounded. Care for each other? He laughed bitterly. You wanted me to be content being married to a woman who was in love with someone else, who had been planning this deception for months while I believed I was getting the perfect wife. The argument escalated as hotel guests in adjacent rooms would later report hearing raised voices around midnight, followed by sounds of furniture being overturned. Do you have any idea what this will do to my family when the truth comes out? Rohan shouted, beginning to pace the luxurious suite like a caged tiger. My father spent his life savings on this wedding. My mother has been telling everyone in our community about her perfect daughter-in-law. When people discover you're a fraud, we'll be finished socially and professionally. No one has to know, Kavya pleaded, rising from her chair and reaching toward him with trembling hands. I'll end things with Arjun tonight. I'll delete everything. Please, Rohan, we can start fresh. But her words only made him angrier. Start fresh? You texted your boyfriend during our wedding reception, telling him this was all just for show. You've been lying to me from the moment we met, and now you want me to believe you'll suddenly become honest. Around 1 a.m, the confrontation moved beyond words to physical struggle as Kavya tried to leave the room and Rohan blocked her path. I want to call my parents, she said, moving toward the hotel phone. They need to know what's happening. Your parents. Rohan grabbed her arm roughly. Your parents who think their daughter is a saint. Your parents who will be destroyed when they learn the truth about what you've been doing in Mumbai. Kavya tried to pull away, but his grip tightened painfully. Let me go, Rohan. You're hurting me. I'm hurting you. His voice cracked with emotion and rage. Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me? How much you've hurt both our families? You made a mockery of everything sacred about marriage. The struggle intensified as desperation took hold of both of them. In her panic, Kavya grabbed the heavy crystal champagne bottle from the ice bucket and swung it at him, missing but shattering it against the marble wall. The sound of breaking glass seemed to snap something fundamental in Rohan's mind. Years of living under impossible family expectations, decades of trying to prove himself worthy of the Malhotra name, and now this ultimate betrayal. All of it erupted in a moment of irreversible violence. You want to fight? He roared, lunging toward her. After everything you've done to me, you want to fight? What happened next would be debated in Mumbai's courts for months, but the physical evidence told a clear story of brutal, sustained violence. Hotel security footage later showed the sounds of struggle continuing until nearly 3 a.m, when an eerie silence fell over the presidential suite. By dawn, when housekeeping staff used their master key to enter after repeated knocking went unanswered, they found Kavya's lifeless body on the marble floor, her red wedding lehenga stained with a darker crimson. Rohan sat cross-legged beside her, still wearing his blood-stained sherwani, staring at the wall with empty eyes and mumbling prayers in Sanskrit. When Mumbai police arrived and placed him in handcuffs, he offered no resistance. His only statement, repeated like a mantra as they led him away, was, "She dishonored our families, but I have destroyed my own soul." The luxury suite that had been prepared for celebration became the scene of a tragedy that would haunt both families forever, leaving behind devastated parents and a community struggling to understand how perfect expectations had led to such imperfect, irreversible consequences.